The courtroom was still, the kind of stillness that bore down on your chest and made it difficult to breathe. Kody Brown sat rigidly at the defendant's table, his hands folded so tight, his knuckles were white. For years he had had his way with every conversation, every household rule, every secret. But now, in this dimly lit room, the control was beginning to slip through his fingers. All it would take was one word spoken across the benches. The tape, they reported that they had a recording, a last bit of evidence that would send everything Kody had constructed, everything he had insisted on from his wives, flying apart. Nobody knew what was on it. But the unspoken tension in the room informed everyone that from the moment they heard it, nothing would be the same ever again. And that's when it hit me. The truth was never buried forever. It always finds its way back, no matter how hard someone tries to silence it. Before we get into the whole truth, ask yourself this: what would you do if one tape could ruin the man who had held your life in his hands for decades? Leave your ideas in the comments below, because trust me, you're going to want to chime in on this one. The tale does not start in the courtroom. It starts much earlier, in the living rooms of Las Vegas and the desolate halls of Flagstaff. When Sister Wives seemed like a picture of an involved but working family, the cameras captured smiles, giggles, and the mess of children. But behind those scenes there was a darker phenomenon, a gradual contracting of control. Kody was not only a husband, he was the gatekeeper. Money came through his hands, decisions were signed off on by his approval. And when one of the wives dared to resist, he had a way of turning the argument against them, making them question themselves. Robyn stood up for him. Meri cowered away. Janelle negotiated behind closed doors. Christine fought the hardest. However, on TV, it all seemed like staged drama for the cameras. People shook their heads, debated who was correct, but what no one knew was that somewhere, hidden away, someone had taped it. Here's where it becomes chilling. The wives themselves did not even know the tape was out there until years after the fact. The first rumors were spread by Meri. She had discovered an old trunk while cleaning out a storage facility in Flagstaff. Among piles of receipts and photos was a small, unlabeled cassette. Dust coated it, as if not having been handled for years. Meri almost discarded it, but there was something about not doing so. Something about holding it in her hand felt significant. That evening, by herself in her rental house, she pushed play, static, a hum, and then, Kody's voice. Not the sweet voice the fans were used to seeing on television, not the enthusiastic father of 18 voice that thundered in interviews. This was different, cutting, icy, authoritative. He was addressing someone. However, Meri could not discern who. The commands issued like a blade. You will do as I tell you. You will obey, or you will get cut out. I determine what this family is, not you, not anyone else. Meri froze. She hit stop, her heart pounding. Her initial reaction was to destroy the tape, to act as if she never heard it. But then the fear crept in. If he spoke this once, what else did he say? What else did he record? She put the tape in her purse, and the next day she phoned Christine. Because sometimes the truth is too heavy to carry alone. When Christine pushed play the second time, they listened together. Christine's expression contorted in a combination of anger and sadness. This is who he really is, she whispered. And that's when she uttered something that would change everything. We have to take this to court. It was a bold move. Risky. After all, Kody wasn't just a husband. He was the face of a television empire. TLC had protected him, crafted him into a complicated but sympathetic character. But now, with this recording, Christine and Meri realized they had something undeniable. Proof. The next months blurred into strategy sessions and meetings with lawyers. Janelle was torn, her loyalty pulled in two directions. She had lived under Kody's rules for decades, but she also knew the truth. Robyn, however, stood by Kody's side, insisting the tape was out of context, a misunderstanding. Her tears filled every room she walked into, begging the others not to ruin what little remained of the family. But it was too late. The lawsuit was filed, and the hearing date was scheduled. Sometimes the moment you choose to stand up for yourself is the moment your life changes forever. Within the courtroom, the air was thick. Reporters and fans filled out the benches, awaiting the next news headline. To one side were Christine, Meri, and later Janelle. Their attorneys pushed papers around, their eyes intense with resolve. To the other side was Kody, teeth gritted, with Robyn whispering crazily in his ear. The judge, a severe-looking woman with tightly pulled back silver hair, raised her hand. This court is now in session, and the war was underway. The first days weren't explosive. They were procedural, filled with motions, objections, stacks of evidence. Kody sat there with a mask of confidence, but beneath it he was unraveling. He leaned too hard on Robyn's hand. He tapped his foot nervously. When Christine spoke, every so often, his glare would cut across the room toward Meri, as if to ask, "How dare you?" But then came the day the prosecution, led by Christine and Meri's lawyer, mentioned the tape. The word itself sent a ripple through the crowd. Journalists scribbled furiously. Cameras shifted. Kody's eyes widened for just a moment before he caught himself. But the damage was done. Everyone saw it. It's always the smallest cracks that reveal the biggest truths. Outside the courtroom, the anxiety spread like wildfire. Tabloids hypothesized about what was on the tape. Social media went crazy with speculations. Some fans thought it was a case of financial fraud. Others imagined that it involved a secret about the children. But only a few knew the truth, and even they hadn't heard the whole recording yet. Christine ached at night, awake repeating Kody's words inside her head. She recalled the years spent pleading with him to treat her as an equal, the tears she had shed in the dark recesses of a polygamous union. And now this, evidence that he never viewed them as equals, that he had always been the master, not the mate. Meri, however, was frightened. She had been apart from Kody for years, but this move, this leap of public betrayal was different. What if the tape wasn't sufficient? What if it bombed? What if Kody turned the entire world against her? And Janelle, trapped in the middle, conflicted between truth and fear. She desired justice, yet she desired peace. And in Sister Wives' world, peace was something they had never really experienced. The further you descend into someone's secrets, the more difficult it is to leave untouched. Back in court, the attorneys danced around the essence of the issue, whether or not the tape could be used as evidence. Kody's attorney said it was against the law, an invasion of privacy, not relevant to the case. Christine's attorneys countered. It was not about privacy, it was about control, manipulation, abuse. The judge heard it, her face impassive. And then, finally, she leaned forward and uttered the words that turned Kody's blood to ice. "The tape will be played." The courtroom exploded. Gasps, and whispers, and wild movement. Reporters sprinted out the doors, calling their editors. Kody pounded his fist on the table, his voice loud. "This is absurd. The stake is taken out of context." But it wasn't going to make any difference. The ruling was given, and as the bailiff brought in the tiny cassette player, Christine's hands trembled. This was it. The moment they had struggled for. The moment they had dreaded. She looked over at Meri, who gave a slight nod. Then she looked over at Kody, and for the first time in years, she saw something she never thought she would. Fear. The bailiff pressed play. Static. Silence. And then, "You will do what I say. You will obey. Or you will be cut out." The words reverberated throughout the courtroom, echoing off walls, digging deep into every ear, every heart. And that was merely the start. Because the tape contained more. Much more. You thought that initial sentence was terrible. Wait until you hear what's on the rest of that tape. The air was once more still. A buzz of static, filling the air like an intangible mist. Kody's confident stance collapsed, a quiver in his hand revealing the fear he attempted to conceal. He edged forward towards Robyn, his voice low and urgent. "They can't play that. They can't. It's not real." But it was true. Every word oozing from the tape was a knife plunged into the empire he had spent decades carefully constructing. The first segment ended, and the judge leaned back, her gaze sweeping across the room. Christine's lips were pressed in a thin line, eyes sharp as a hawk's. Meri's hands trembled slightly, gripping the edge of the table. Janelle's breathing was shallow, a quiet panic underlying her usual composure. Then the second part of the tape began. This time the voice was not only commanding, it was manipulative, threatening in its tone. "Remember," Kody's voice insisted, "they can never see the whole picture. One misstep, one miscalculation, and it all falls apart. You control the strings. I am the axis, always. Never forget that." The women looked at each other, a combination of horror and incredulity flashing over their faces. They knew Kody was controlling, sometimes cruel, but to hear it as out and out, every calculated manipulation, every whispered ultimatum, was another thing altogether. Some secrets are better left unspoken, but the heart always musters up the strength to learn them. Outside the courtroom, tension filled the air. Gossip had already circulated regarding the tape, and people were speculating on what dirty little secrets it contained. Social media went wild with theories, accusations, and wild speculation, but the truth was much more sinister than people could have possibly envisioned. Back in the courtroom, the judge had a brief recess. The wives leaned into a corner, whispering to one another. Christine's eyes were piercing, burning with fury. This is different. He's been lying to us, to the cameras, to everybody. Meri nodded, her voice softer, with a tinge of fear. It's worse than I imagined. I knew he was in control, but this Christine, he's been plotting this for years. Janelle gulped hard, attempting to keep her voice steady. Do you believe he ever loved any one of us the way he professed? The question hovered over them like a storm cloud, unspoken and unavoidable. Because when control is the only thing you've ever known, love can be a weapon. Back in the courtroom, Kody's attorney attempted to interrupt, gesturing with papers in protest. Your Honor, this is hearsay. There's no way that tape can be used as valid evidence. The judge held up her hand, silencing him. Objection noted. But we are moving forward. The court will hear the entire tape. Kody's jaw clenched. He leaned forward again, his voice barely above a whisper. Tell them it's fake. Tell them it's doctored. Robyn's expression crumpled. She had been in love with him for years, had stood by him through every scandal, every family feud. But now, watching the tape, listening to the icy calculation in his tone, the fissures in her allegiance started to crack. The tape went on. This time, Kody's statements were sickeningly intimate. You will make them doubt one another. Christine, you can break rules, but never query me. Janelle, your obedience holds the family together, so keep it in line. Meri, you are disposable if necessary. Never forget who you are. Christine's fists clenched. Meri's eyes filled with tears. Janelle looked like she might collapse, and Robyn's mouth opened slightly, unable to speak. The weight of years of manipulation, of emotional and psychological control, pressed down on them all. The deeper the secret, the more explosive its revelation. The judge halted the tape for a moment, allowing the impact of the words to register. There was complete silence. Even the gallery was motionless, feeling the gargantuan change in dynamics. Kody, who was once invincible, now appeared small, vulnerable, frail, and that vulnerability was frightening him. Outside of court, rumors became outright rumors. Did you hear what's on the tape? One reporter asked another. It's unbelievable. If this is true, it could destroy him totally. Inside, the wives conferred with their attorneys, strategizing. Christine's eyes were razor sharp, calculating, bordering on dangerous. We can't simply offer up the tape. We must demonstrate the pattern, the control, the manipulation, the deceit. Each choice he made, each rule, each threat, it's all linked. Meri nodded slowly. Yes, it's the entire system. He's been manipulating all of us against one another. But now, it's finally out in the open. Janelle hesitated. Do you think he'll try to retaliate with more deceit? Christine's glare could have sliced steel. He'll try. But for the first time, we have evidence. And evidence makes all the difference. Because ultimately the evidence does not lie. People do. When the tape continued, tension doubled. Kody's measured, calm voice started to detail certain financial manipulations, instances where he had diverted money intended for the wives into his own pockets. There were details of hidden accounts, secret investments, and creatively worded contracts which flowed like a confession. The wives could barely catch their breath. They knew there were discrepancies, missing money, unseen purchases, unexplained expenditures. But to hear him say it, coldly, precisely, made a shiver run down their spines. Christine leaned forward, her jaws locked, her fists tightening on the tabletop. Have you ever seen someone you trusted lie so easily, so utterly? Meri shook her head, her throat constricted. I don't believe it. I've been questioning for years, and he always had an answer. Now I see it all. The air in the room appeared to thicken with tension as Kody's voice still commanded the space, although he wasn't actually speaking. The tape was carrying out the work he had long mastered. Robyn, on the other hand, remained silent, her face white. She had never doubted the man she'd stood by for so long. Each word on that recording was like a fracture in her allegiance. She thought in love, in family, in the system Kody had set up. But now the system was exposed, controlling, manipulative, self-serving. She spoke softly to herself, almost under her breath. What have I been part of all these years? The other wives heard her whispering, and it felt like a tiny shaft of truth piercing Kody's years of dominance. For once someone starts to doubt, the whole facade can begin to fall apart. The tape went on to show the most astonishing yet a series of recorded interviews with private investigators, friends, and even some relatives, all acknowledging Kody's manipulation of public opinion. Each tale, each crying jag, each public shouting match had been staged. The wives weren't victims, they were players in Kody's game, and they hadn't even realized. Christine's face went pale, but her hands remained steady. She knew what had to happen next. Meri's eyes filled with tears but her jaw tightened with determination. Janelle looked both shocked and betrayed. And Robyn finally realized that loyalty to Kody had come at the cost of her own agency, her own voice. Some revelations are too big to ignore, and too dangerous to forget. Before the court broke for the day, the outside air was charged at the courthouse. Rumors flew around like crazy, everyone trying to guess what had just been discovered. The wives exited side by side, a sort of truce among the adversaries, their decades-long secrets weighing heavily in their hearts. Kody, though, seemed shaken. For years he had realized he no longer dictated terms. The tape had taken that away from him. The control had switched, and the women he had attempted to control were now in possession of the evidence that could bring him down. And as they say, the last tape doesn't just show the truth, it alters everything forever. You think this is dramatic? Wait until part 2. The tape still has one more surprise no one saw coming, and it has the power to ruin everything Kody has left. The wives gain the upper hand, Kody is shaken to his core, and the ultimate secret on the tape, the one that can completely destroy him, is about to come out. The courtroom was strained to the breaking point. All eyes were on the tiny cassette player in front, where the bailiff had just hit the play button for the third part of the tape. Kody fidgeted in his seat, his face white and tense with rage and fear. Robyn's hand trembled as she sought to calm his, but even her presence couldn't conceal the increasingly turbulent storm. This time, the tape was not the same. The first 2 segments had uncovered control, manipulation, and financial dishonesty, but this time the language was intimate, slashing, damning, and personal. Kody's voice, steady and measured, described dialogue that had been exchanged in secret bedrooms, whispered kitchen fights, and late-night phone calls. Each word he said had been deliberate to control, intimidate, and shape the women into what he wanted them to be. Never show your real feelings, the tape went on. All your tears have to be staged. All your griping has to be deflected. You will act happiness. You will demonstrate unity. I choose what is visible to the world, and I choose what stays in the room. Anything else is prohibited. Christine's jaw was clenching so hard it hurt. Meri's hands wrapped around the edge of the table so tightly her knuckles whitened. Janelle's eyes welled up with tears, but she blinked hard, forcing herself not to break in front of Kody. Robyn's normally calm face paled as the words cut into her heart. Sometimes the hardest truths are told by those we love the most. The tape continued. Kody's voice outlined specific methods for controlling the wives, how to manipulate them against one another, so no one would be able to confront him, and the ways he had manipulated appearances on television, the lengths to which he had been willing to go to stage drama, pretend ignorance, and maintain his status were overwhelming. Even taped me, Christine whispered to Meri during a temporary break, her own voice shaking. All those confrontations, all the fights he tried to downplay, they were staged, scripted. Every glance, every sentence. Meri shivered, and we were just pawns in his game. I never saw it coming. Janelle said nothing, eyes down at the ground, thoughts racing. We were trapped in a tale he created, and we didn't even realize we were inside. Every decision, every action, even our emotions, manipulated. Robyn turned away from Kody for the first time in years. Her eyes seemed far away, her mouth pinched shut. She had given her life to him, believed in his charm and words, had stood by him to the world, but now all she held true was a lie. The burden of betrayal is nearly intolerable when it is from someone you trusted and loved. The prosecution then froze the tape in order to put things into context for the court. Lawyers indicated particular points, cross-referring dates, conversations, and financial records. The room remained quiet, except for scratching pen noises and occasional murmurs from reporters. This tape illustrates a calculated pattern of control, manipulation, and intimidation, Christine's attorney said. It illustrates that Kody Brown had total control over the family, dictating behaviors, emotions, and even the public narrative. The women were coerced, subtly threatened, and isolated to make sure his dominance was not challenged. Kody's attorney leaped to his feet. "Your Honor, this is outrageous. The tape is selectively edited. Out of context, it's a setup to discredit my client." But the judge would not be swayed. "We will hear the whole recording. Selective editing allegations can be addressed later. But for now, the court will take this evidence on its face." Kody's faith began to falter. He had constructed his existence on control, on being able to contain perception. But now that control was slipping from his grasp like sand. When the facade of power collapses, panic is the only reaction that remains. The recording then disclosed the most unbelievable aspect: discussions regarding controlling children and family dynamics for self-interest. Kody's voice, relaxed and deliberate, described instances in which he had told one wife to address a child in a particular manner, or to keep something from another wife, all in order to keep him in control. Meri's hands flew to her face, stifling a sob. Christine's teeth clenched, her anger building like a storm ready to explode. Janelle's legs shook under the table. Robyn's eyes glistened with tears she refused to shed publicly. The betrayal was total, complete, and unmistakable. Some wounds run so deep, they leave marks that no passage of time can erase. Outside of the courtroom, reporters and fans guessed wildly. Headlines blazed across social media. "Sister Wives Star Exposed," and "Kody Brown's Control Exposed in Tape." The public outcry was fierce, but within the women felt something deeper still. Christine spoke softly, near whisper to herself. "Really, for the first time, we have the power. The control isn't his anymore. It's ours." Meri swallowed hard, nodding. "It's scary, but liberating. I've been carrying it all this time, even when I didn't know I was. Now we can face it." Janelle broke her silence at last, her voice shaking but firm. "We have the proof, the truth. We just need to be brave enough to see this through." Robyn's gaze stayed on Kody. "And he knows now," she breathed. "Truth has a way of empowering those who have suffered in silence." Back in the courtroom, tension ran high as the tape broke open even more. Kody's voice discussing ways to shape public opinion through selective editing of the show, methodically planting seeds of conflict and reconciliation, creating a narrative that portrayed him as misunderstood, patient, and loving. Each disclosure was another knife in his credibility, another coffin nail in the facade of his well-crafted public image. The wives looked at each other, realizing for the first time the extent of the deception. Christine turned to her lawyer. "We have to concentrate on the timeline. Every falsehood he spoke, every clandestine movement, every move to control the masses, it all has to be chronicled." Meri's eyes welled up with tears. "And it all leads back to him. Everything. We can't let him rewrite this now." Janelle's voice was little more than a whisper. "He believed we'd never get the complete picture. He believed he had everything under his control. But this tape, it demonstrates that he doesn't." Robyn's mouth quivered, but she stayed silent. The fact that her loyalty had been manipulated struck harder than anything else. At times, encountering the truth is more agonizing than experiencing ignorance. The last section of the tape started playing. This was the part that everybody had dreaded. The final tape spoken of in hushed tones for years. Kody sounded icy now, nearly robotic, outlining methods for keeping the wives under control even if they tried to resist. Strategies for isolating, muzzling, and manipulating each of the women separately were outlined in agonizing detail. Meri gasped, covering her mouth. Christine's hands trembled, her nails digging into the wooden table. Janelle's chest rose and fell, and Robyn's eyes flickered between the wives and Kody, finally understanding that all she'd thought had been built for her to obey. When the ultimate truth comes out, nothing is ever the same again. The room went silent as the tape was finished. There only remained the echo of Kody's voice, haunting, commanding, and rightfully deliberate. The judge leaned forward, her gaze unflinching. "We will examine the contents in their entirety, and act accordingly. Kody's face was ashen. His hands shook as he attempted to stay composed. For the first time in decades, he was exposed. Christine, Meri, and Janelle inched up in their chairs, having a moment of solidarity and silence. Robyn, shaken, finally broke her gaze from Kody, her eyes wide with clarity, determination, realizing the illusion had been broken, and along with it, the man she'd defended all these years. The last tape had altered everything, and the aftermath was going to be even more dramatic than anyone could imagine. Thought you'd seen the worst, just wait till you hear what the wives discover next. It's going to rock the foundation of all that Kody's constructed. The revelations of the tape have taken control away from Kody. The wives are emboldened, but emotionally naked, and the next will examine their plan to take him on, the legality of it, and the emotional pyrotechnics that ensue. The air inside the courthouse hung heavy, as if one couldn't quite breathe, weighed down by the explosive revelations of the final tape. Kody hunched at the defense table, his fingers shaking a little, his gaze rapidly flicking between the judge and his wives. Robyn, standing next to him now, no longer felt protective. It was a thin veil between him and the mayhem his own words had created. The women, on the other hand, were transformed. Christine's posture was rigid, sharp with purpose. Meri's eyes, once wary and quiet, now burned with determination. Janelle, who had spent years navigating Kody's manipulation, radiated a quiet but unshakable strength. For the first time, they weren't just participants in Kody's carefully constructed narrative. They were ready to dismantle it entirely. Certain truths are so forceful, they incite a bravery you never knew you possessed. The trial continued, and the atmosphere in the courtroom was tense. The judge, a no-nonsense woman with decades of experience on the bench, spoke directly to Kody. "Mr. Brown, the court has listened to the contents of this tape. Would you like to say something before we continue?" Kody swallowed hard. His words, when they came, were strained, tight. "Your Honor, I believe this tape has been taken out of context. I have always tried to be in harmony with my family. I love my wives. I've only ever wanted what's best for them." Christine's eyes narrowed, her voice cutting across the room as she interjected. "Harmony? Your harmony has been a carefully crafted cage. You've dictated every choice, manipulated every interaction, and lied about every truth that mattered. This tape proves it, and the court will see it." The words hung in the air like thunder. Kody's fists were clenched, but even that could not conceal the shudder coursing through him. Robyn hesitated to touch his arm, whispering soft words, but they rang hollow. Control is intoxicating, but losing it is devastating. The prosecution started presenting in earnest. They replayed essential parts of the tape, highlighting proof of fiscal misconduct, intentional emotional manipulation, and public lies for TV viewers. Every disclosure struck with greater impact than the previous one, and every time Kody attempted to interrupt, the judge shut him down with a firm hand. The courtroom gallery could sense the burden of the control he had exercised. Each tactic he had used, every threat, every manipulation was revealed. The wives looked at one another, their determination strengthening. They had endured in his shadow for so many years, but now everyone was witnessing the reality also. Meri turned to Christine. "It's like the man I thought I knew never existed. All the memories are tainted." Christine's eyes welled up with unshed tears. "No, Meri, the man did live, but the one he presented to us was a front. And now we're glimpsing behind it. Sometimes the truth isn't just uncovered. It changes the way you view your entire past." Kody's defense attempted to depict the tape as selective, manipulated and presented in a malicious fashion. "Your Honor, these tapes don't tell the whole story. My client has always loved his family deeply, and these clips are taken out of context." But the judge, mature and unyielding, interrupted him. "The court is well aware of the allegation, but the frequency and corroboration of these tapes with financial and corroborative evidence cannot be dismissed." Robyn shifted restlessly in her seat. She had adored him, stood up for him, and accepted the family he showed to the world. But now the puzzle pieces were falling into place in a way she could not deny. Every revelation stripped away the layers of her allegiance, leaving her with the harsh reality. Loyalty is the most difficult tie to break, until the truth reveals to you its vulnerability. The following hours were a seesaw of evidence. Private investigators, former friends, and even employees were brought in to verify the contents of the tape. Each sentence they uttered, Each piece of evidence they introduced wore away at Kody's carefully constructed kingdom. Christine, herself standing tall and poised, gave her own testimony, describing the emotional manipulation she had endured, the calculated maneuvers Kody had used to ensure dominance, and the stifling control that had characterized her life in the family. Meri trailed behind her, her voice shaking at the beginning but increasing with each sentence. She spoke about loneliness, about fear by virtue of financial and emotional manipulation, and the years she spent second-guessing herself in the face of calculated manipulation by Kody. Janelle's turn was subdued but compelling. She spoke of moments of uncertainty, of confusion, of being caught between allegiance and the inescapable fact. Her testimony was understated but no less condemning, a quiet, unmovable accusation of the domination Kody had over every piece of their lives. When victims speak out, even the most imposing barriers can be breached. Kody's attitude changed as the testimonies went on. Initially, he had an outwardly composed demeanor, trying to project confidence. But as his wives' and supporting witnesses' words took effect, the cracks in his facade were palpable. His jaw clenched, his hands twitched, and the previously imposing man now appeared diminished, trapped. Robyn watched silently, the weight of realization pressing down on her. She had defended him publicly, loved him privately, and now she faced the undeniable truth. Kody had been orchestrating every narrative, every confrontation, every reconciliation, and every emotional breakdown for decades. Meri glanced at her, whispering softly, "It's okay, you're not alone." Robyn nodded, tears on the brink of spilling. For the first time, she finally realized that her allegiance had been played against her and the trust she put in Kody had been used as a weapon against her. The more you examine deception, the more difficult it is to look away from the scarring it leaves behind. The prosecution then dropped the final bombshell, the segment of the tape that no one had yet heard. Kody's voice, measured and unhurried, laid out a strategy for how to control his wives even if they attempted to revolt publicly or legally. He talked of domination of public image, control of family finances so that dependence would be maintained, and of the women being discredited should they go public. The words landed like a thunderbolt. Every person in the room felt the gravity. Kody, once untouchable, was suddenly exposed in the harshest light. Every secret, every manipulation, every carefully crafted lie had been captured, and now the world and the court could hear it. Christine's eyes were fierce with determination. This is it. Every single move, every single plan, every single deception. It's all here, and it's finally going to be addressed. Meri nodded, swallowing hard. The truth isn't just out. It's unstoppable now. Janelle's quiet strength radiated from, "We've been patient for decades. Now the world sees what we've lived through." Robyn's voice shook as she whispered, "And I can't deny it any longer. I can't justify it. I must confront it. When the last curtain rises, you cannot hide from reality." The court took a brief recess, and the hallway was filled with whispers. Fans, journalists, even the staff were discussing the situation in hushed tones. Social media was on fire with speculation and outrage. But behind closed doors, the wives were getting ready for the ultimate showdown, the moment when they would confront Kody directly, challenge him, and force him to account. Kody remained silent, the burden of revelation crushing him. His empire of domination was crumbling, and he could feel the power seeping away from his fingers. For decades, he had been the puppeteer, the puppet master, the invisible hand behind every action. Now he was revealed, exposed, human. The strongest empires fall when truth comes to light. When the courtroom opened again, the judge indicated the completion of proceedings. Kody stood up slowly, his face ghostly. The wives watched him sternly, their nerves stretched to the limit. They had spent years putting up with manipulation, lies, and emotional domination, but now they were ready. Christine's voice was strong, unshaken. "We are prepared to face the truth, and we are prepared for responsibility." Meri nodded, her hands shaking still, but her determination unbreakable. No more silence, no more fear. "It ends today." Janelle's quiet courage gave gravity to the moment. "We've waited too long. It's time to confront what has been hidden for too long." Robyn, her allegiance broken, but her perception intact, murmured, "I can't deny it any longer. We have to keep going forward, and it begins here." The judge's eyes scanned them all. "Proceed, because it takes strength, honesty, and solidarity to stand up against a lifetime of domination. And the next few minutes will push each of you to your limits. Take a deep breath, The showdown is about to blow your mind in ways you can't even imagine. You won't believe what happens when Kody confronts the truth head-on. Where the wives confront Kody head-on, the emotional and courtroom battles intensify, and shocking confessions and breakdowns occur. The courtroom was thick with tension, the kind that weighed upon the chest and made breathing a chore. Kody Brown, who was once invincible, sat at the defendant's table, white and stiff, the burden of decades of domination now weighing upon him. Robyn had his hand in hers, her hold tight but tentative, a delicate lifeline in the storm of revelation. Across from them, Christine, Meri, and Janelle sat in solidarity, their faces etched harder by years of manipulation and deception. The last part of the tape had been played, revealing the extent of Kody's control over money, relationships, and even the image of the family to the outside world. The words hung there like an impending storm ready to burst. And when the truth at last comes out, silence can be more eloquent than any indictment. The session was called to order by the judge. We will now begin the direct confrontation. A hush fell over the room. For years, Kody had maintained control over every interaction, every narrative, every word. Now he was about to face the very people he had tried to dominate. Christine stood first, her hands clenched at her sides. Her eyes were sharp, unflinching. "Kody," she said, her tone even but cutting through the tension like a blade, "you've controlled every aspect of our lives. Every choice, every fight, every penny, every word we've ever spoken, all of it under your command. And now we have evidence. Evidence of what we've endured, sensed, and lived with for years. So you have any words to offer?" Kody swallowed hard. "Christine, I've always attempted to," she interrupted him, her voice heightening, tried to control, manipulate, isolate, and silence us, you mean? Control is only real until it's confronted." Meri leaned forward, her voice quivering but steady. "I was afraid to speak, to make a decision that would displease you. You made all the decisions for me, for all of us. And now your words on that recording show it. I trusted you, and you used that trust as a tool." Janelle, quieter still in confrontation, now spoke with contained intensity. "For years I made excuses for what you did. I said you loved us, that this is how family functions. But the tape doesn't lie. Your manipulation is on record, irrefutable, and it's time to be held accountable." Robyn was seated in stunned silence, the truth coming crashing down on her. She had publicly defended him, privately believed in him, loved him with blind devotion. But to hear the words on the tape, to see the wives face him face to face, she knew the extent of the deceit. Trembling, she mouthed, I can't defend this anymore. Oftentimes the very person you've defended most is the one who betrays you the worst." The judge gestured for Kody to answer. His commanding voice now stumbled. I never intended to hurt anyone. I thought I was leading the family, guarding it. Everything I did was for stability, for the children, for the home." Christine's eyes narrowed. "Guarding us? By keeping us isolated, controlling us, and dictating every word we could say, every action we could make." Meri's voice increased, shaking with rage and sorrow. "You didn't guard us, you locked us up, and now, for the first time, we have the ability to escape. Escaping control is frightening, but a must for survival." The courtroom was charged. Every word, every accusation, every emotional outburst reverberated through the room. Onlookers leaned forward. Journalists wrote furiously, and even Kody's attorney appeared disturbed. For the first time, the man who had arranged every public outing, every secret conversation, every family feud was exposed, open to the harshest light. The tape had shown more than manipulation. It revealed deceit, financial diversion, and emotional manipulation. Each witness testified to a part of the puzzle. Each confession, each whisper, each written word, another piece in the unraveling of Kody's control. Janelle's voice wavered a little, but her tone was firm. "You believed the cameras concealed the truth. You believed dictating the narrative equated to controlling us. But this is life, Kody. And in life, control can't exist when the truth reveals itself." Robyn's lips trembled. "I trusted you. I believed in you, but now I realize that I was a character in the story you wrote. I don't know what I was to you, but I know who I am now." Acknowledgement of betrayal is the beginning of the road back to power. Kody attempted to speak once more, his voice shaking. I didn't know. I didn't see. I thought," Meri interrupted him, her face streaming with tears. You thought what? That your deceptions would keep you safe? That your domination would remain undetected? That we would never find our voices? Christine's eyes sparkled with held-back fury. Each tactic, each manipulation, each thing you said to exert control is on tape. The tape does not lie. And neither do we. The world knows you for what you are today. Robyn, at last speaking up, added, I can't be a part of this anymore. Kody, I can't defend you. I can't rationalize your actions. Deception time is over. Confronting the truth hurts, but silence kills. The tension in the room reached a peak as the wives pressed on, their emotions raw but controlled. Each of them recounted experiences from their lives under Kody's control, moments of fear, humiliation, manipulation, and emotional coercion. Every word struck Kody like a physical blow, chipping away at the carefully constructed facade he had maintained for decades. The courtroom was still, except for the voices overlaid with decades of anguish. Christine's voice, steady but shaking, recounted the years of veiled threats and public coercion. Meri spoke of the financial domination and exclusion she suffered. Janelle reported the psychological tug-of-war she went through between allegiance and survival. Robyn testified last, her voice cracking, admitting her own complicity in standing up for someone who had misled her, and finally releasing the domination she had unconsciously upheld. Confrontation of the emotions can blast through even the strongest walls. Kody's face went white. He was smaller, almost brittle than ever before. The empire of domination he had constructed, the story he had created for the public, and the expectation of loyalty he had assumed were all dismantling themselves before his eyes. The judge's voice cut across the silence. Mr. Brown, the court has heard evidence, seen evidence, and read what was said on the recording. Do you want to say something in your defense before we consider it further? Kody's hands shook. His voice, normally firm and authoritative, was hardly above a whisper. I didn't want to hurt anybody. I believed I was doing the right thing. Christine took a step forward, her voice steady. No more deception, Kody. The time for control is over. The time for honesty, responsibility, and truth is now. You will be held accountable for your actions. Meri's voice echoed out, determined. And this isn't just about us. It's about the family, the children, and the years you controlled everything. The world needs to see the whole truth. Accountability cannot be avoided when the proof is irrefutable. The courtroom was filled with murmurs. Cameras snapped. Onlookers leaned forward. Kody's attorneys attempted to intervene, but the power of the wives' collective voices was staggering. The proof was irrefutable, the testimonies powerful, and the emotional pull unshakable. Robyn, beside Kody, finally withdrew her hand. Her face was firm. I can no longer stand beside you. I won't. Christine's eyes flashed hers for an instant, a wordless recognition of mutual strength. Meri and Janelle nodded. For the first time they stood together, not in fear, not out of loyalty to Kody, but in the unshakable truth. Truth and unity are stronger than manipulation and control. The judge held her hand up for order. We will adjourn for the day. The court will be back tomorrow to discuss further action based on the testimonies and evidence given. Kody reclined, exhausted, shattered, and wordless. The wives departed the courtroom as a united front, a silence of solidarity falling over them. They had weathered the storm, stood up to the manipulator, and begun walking down the path toward reclaiming their lives. Christine whispered to Meri and Janelle, "This is just the start. But we've made the first move. The world knows the truth." Meri nodded, her face wet with tears. For years we were silent. Today we talk. Robyn strode beside them, her head high, free at last from the unseen shackles of duty she had held onto for so long. Sometimes, the bravery to face the truth does change everything, for all time. And just when you think it's all over, the next episode uncovers secrets that nobody saw coming. Secrets that have the potential to destroy Kody's world totally. The wives have publicly confronted Kody. The courtroom has been shaken, but there remain secrets and surprises in store that will come to light heightening the drama and tension. The courtroom was a tense whirlwind of whispers, expectation, and strained tension. Kody Brown sat stiff, eyes fixed on the ground, his hands quivering minutely. For the first time in decades, the man who had manipulated so much control was not in charge. Each unobtrusive strategy he had employed, each whispered insinuation of manipulation, Each engineered fight had been revealed, and now the wives were set to take advantage of the chaos he had engineered. Christine, Meri, and Janelle sat forward, their faces burning with determination that had been shaped by years of secrecy and silence. Robyn, shaken but awake, observed Kody's every move. The stakes were higher than ever, and the next bombshell would be an even bigger one. When secrets are revealed, even the best conceived facades can fall apart in the blink of an eye. The judge cleared her throat and called the courtroom to order. We will now hear the further evidence and testimony given by the prosecution concerning Mr. Brown's long-term control and manipulation tactics. The air crackled. Kody's attorney stood, trying to preemptively forestall some of the evidence, but the judge's icy stare brought him down. Objections are noted. However, the court has determined this material critical to the understanding of the entire extent of influence exerted upon the family. The first piece of evidence presented was a series of private communications between Kody and former family advisors, revealing meticulously calculated strategies for isolating each wife's emotion. Every instruction, every subtle threat, and every manipulative tactic was laid bare. Christine's jaw tightened as she listened, and Meri's hands clenched so tightly her nails dug into her palms. Janelle gestured to Christine, breathing softly. He actually schemed everything. Each argument, each makeup, all staged. Invisible control is more binding than bondage. Then the prosecution presented yet another bombshell, proof of Kody's efforts to manipulate public opinion off-camera. Off-the-books finances, secret investment, and clandestine messages to media allies demonstrated that he had been actively working to create a heroic, misunderstood persona, while maintaining a private sense of dominance over the wives. Robyn's eyes went wide as she absorbed the details. She had bought into Kody's public image, defended him, justified his action, and maintained the family reputation. Now, everything was falling apart. Her devotion had been used against. Meri's voice was soft but laced with steel. All along, we were being manipulated, as everyone else perceived him as the sacrificing husband, the long-suffering father, and we were just marionettes. Christine nodded. Exactly, and now, the truth is finally revealed, and we are taking control. Sometimes, seeing the secret strings of manipulation is the first step to cutting them entirely. The most incendiary revelation came when the last set of recordings was released. This off-the-record segment exposed Kody's secret orders to his loyal followers, explaining precisely how to quell dissent within the family. Every scenario was planned out: how to manage a querying wife, how to deflect blame, and how to manipulate even outside sympathy to preserve his dominance unopposed. Janelle's face went white, and she breathed softly. He believed he could control everything, our rebellion included. But now the proof is here. Meri's voice was hardly above a whisper, shaking with anger. And we won't be silenced any longer. We're finished hiding from him, from ourselves, and from the world. Christine's crisp voice cut through the tension. This is not only evidence of manipulation, it's evidence of intent. He didn't just respond to circumstances, he created them to gain compliance. That is not love. That is control. Manipulation is subtle, yet its destruction is overwhelming when uncovered. As the tape was played, Kody's response grew more evident. His hands trembled, his jaw set hard, and sweat beaded on his forehead. Each word, each strategy he had so painstakingly concealed, was now scrutinized under the unforgiving glare of exposure. Robyn, watching from beside him, was no longer shielding. She was outraged, shocked, and at last awakened to the truth she had shut her eyes to for so long. The wives, meanwhile, felt a mixture of anger, validation, and empowerment. Years of silent suffering, of whispered doubts, and of emotional manipulation had led to this moment. Christine's sharp gaze never left Kody. Meri's hands trembled slightly, but her posture was strong. Janelle's quiet determination radiated an unbreakable strength, and Robyn's conflicted emotions finally coalesced into clarity. The moment truth surfaces, the dynamic of power shifts irreversibly. The prosecution then presented physical evidence, emails, financial documents, and photographs that confirmed Kody's meticulous planning of conflicts and reconciliations. The documents aligned perfectly with the tape, proving that manipulation was not accidental but premeditated and deliberate. Christine leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. Every single detail lines up. Every threat, every financial decision, every emotional maneuver. It's all there. He thought we'd never see the pattern. Meri swallowed hard. He underestimated us. He underestimated the courage it takes to confront the truth, to stand united, and to insist on accountability. Janelle spoke softly too, adding, "We've waited long enough. Now the world can see the extent of deception, and we will not let it go on." Robyn's voice, trembling but resolute, cut through the courtroom. "I can't defend him anymore. I've tried. I've believed. But the truth is undeniable. And it has to be faced. Facing manipulation head-on is terrifying, but ignoring it can be deadly." Then came the most emotionally charged moment of the day, Kody's direct confrontation with each wife. The first to speak was Christine. Her voice was steady, sharp, and unyielding. "Kody, do you see what you've done? Do you know how every word, every scheme, every manipulation has harmed us? You believed to control us was love, protection, guidance. It was merely domination." Kody's lips trembled. I thought I was helping. Christine's voice sliced through him like glass. "Helping is respecting boundaries. Helping is listening. You manipulated, you controlled, and you lied. To all of us. And now, we are done being silent." Meri trailed behind her, her voice trembling but firm. "Each choice you made that impacted me, my independence and my family was dictated by fear. Fear of disappointing you. Fear of altercation. And now, I refuse to dwell in that fear anymore." Janelle's turn was subdued but lethal in effect. "You might have thought we were submissive. You might have thought that you had absolute control. But truth has a way of surfacing. And here it is. We are no longer under the domination of your schemes or lies." Robyn, her eyes welling with tears, broke her silence at last. "I believed in you, Kody. I loved you. But I can't justify what you've done. I won't be party to manipulation and dishonesty anymore. I need to take myself back." Confrontation with reality is both exhilarating and crushing. Kody's expression showed a blend of shock, terror, and sadness. For years he had held sway with coercion, meticulously crafting each interchange, every impression. But now, faced with the undeniable proof, the cries of those he had tried to control, and the pressure of his revealed deeds, he felt the full weight of the repercussions. The judge, sensing the heat of the moment, asked for restraint. "Order in the court. The testimonies have been given. The evidence is conclusive. We will deliberate on the implications, but the court acknowledges the courage shown here today by the women who came forward." Christine's eyes stayed fixed on Kody. "This isn't just a legal victory. It's the start of taking back our lives, our voices, and our dignity." Meri smiled, wiping away her own tears, but her resolve greater than before. "For decades we were silenced. Today, we have our voices, and tomorrow we have our actions." Janelle's unspoken strength emanated throughout the courtroom. "We've been manipulated, lied to, and controlled. But now we are empowered, and the world will know the truth." Robyn's voice, husky but resolute, filled in, "We were held by fear and loyalty once before. But now we are choosing freedom, and no one will be able to take that from us. Freedom comes when silence is shattered, and truth is claimed." The court recessed for the day, and Kody sat alone with his thoughts, exposed in ways he never could have conceived. The wives departed together, a collective force of strength, courage, and truth. Every step they took was a symbol of freedom, but also the reality that the fight was far from over. Outside the courthouse steps, reporters and social media went wild, and public opinion swung wildly. The decades-long story Kody had told was falling apart before their eyes, and the world watched as the women reasserted their voices, their dignity, and their agency. When the truth comes out at last, it shifts everything, forever. Just when you believe Kody has no secrets left, will unleash shocking confessions and turns of events nobody could anticipate. The drama is far from finished, where shocking confessions, dramatic turns, and the emotional aftermath of the confrontation between the wives will reign supreme, building to the climactic conclusion. The courtroom felt almost electric the following morning. The wives arrived together, a silent solidarity radiating from their every movement. Christine's jaw was tight with determination. Meri's eyes reflected both sorrow and resolve. Janelle's posture radiated unshakable calm. And Robyn, her expression a mixture of shock and awakening, finally walked free of the weight of her blind loyalty. Kody, on the other hand, was smaller than ever. The previous day's confrontations had taken away from him the authority he had held for decades. His face was pale, His hands were tightly clenched, and his characteristic mask of composure was cracked, showing the man behind the control he used to hold so absolutely. Some truths are so damning, they leave no room for pretense. The court resumed, and the judge requested the production of further evidence and confessions that had been held back until this moment. The room became quiet, as a fresh envelope was produced for the prosecution. Within it were handwritten letters from Kody himself, admissions and confessions that even he hadn't anticipated seeing the light of day. Christine strained forward, eyes wide as the opening words were read out. It says here, he confesses to deliberately withholding information from us, deliberately causing clashes, and even manipulating funds so he can still control the situation. He was perfectly aware of what he was doing. Meri's fists gripped the edge of the table. I don't believe it. He wrote it himself. There's no doubt about it now. Every instinct I had, every sense of discomfort, it was true, and he knew it. Janelle, normally taciturn and reserved, exhaled a deep breath. This isn't only proof of manipulation, it's proof of intent, planning, and willful deception. Robyn's lips quivered, her voice little more than a breath. I just can't defend him anymore. The truth is staring at me, and it's undeniable. When written confession meets lived experience, the weight of reality becomes unbearable. The prosecution played the last section of the tape, one Kody never could have imagined would ever be played in a courtroom. It uncovered discussions where Kody acknowledged the extent of his manipulation, detailing his justification for keeping each wife isolated and dictating public opinion. The recordings were eerily composed, but the language hit like sledgehammers, calculated, deliberate, and persistent. Christine's voice rose slightly, piercing the room. You see, Meri? He never moved from love or concern, all control. Every tear, every fight, every kiss and makeup was staged. Meri nodded, swallowing hard. I trusted him. I loved him. And all along, I was living in a cage I didn't know existed. Janelle spoke softly. And now we are empowered at last to walk away from. We have our voices at last. The judge and Robyn locked eyes, Robyn's clarity breaking. I won't be a part of this lie anymore. I can see the truth, and I must do something about it. Discovery of age-old secrets can empower even the most devoted. The courtroom erupted into murmurs as the judge permitted the wives to speak for themselves, without interruption. Christine's words were biting, incisive, and passionate. Kody, do you comprehend the lives you have manipulated? Do you know the pain, the fear, and the silencing of our voices that you initiated? You've tried to control not only us, but every story around us. And now, it's over. Kody's lips trembled. I was trying to protect. I was trying to lead. I never wanted to hurt anyone. Meri's tears shook the courtroom. You didn't save us. You jailed us. And now we have the proof to take back what you stole. Our voice, our dignity, our lives. Janelle's soft voice had a tremendous weight. We waited. We kept silent. We suffered. But we've woken up, and there's no going back. Robyn finally broke the silence, her own voice shaking but determined. I can no longer defend you. I can no longer lie for you. I can no longer make it something other than what it is. I see now, and I will not be a part of your manipulation. Recognition of deceit is the starting point to real freedom. The courtroom doors unexpectedly swung open, and new evidence was brought forth. A series of videos where Kody tried to subtly manipulate the wives against each other. He had planned small disputes and disagreements that in public appeared spontaneous but were secretly well rehearsed. Christine's eyes grew wide. This is crazy. He thought he could manipulate us against each other. Even now, Meri shook her head, stunned. All these years we were never doing anything on our own initiative. We were responding to the strings he pulled. Janelle's measured voice, steady and calm, cut through the stillness. And now, the strings have been severed. We are finally free to stand together, unmanipulated, and unafraid. Robyn's lips trembled. And I will never again be a part of that manipulation. I've been blind, but now I see. Even the finest artifices dissolve when brought into the light. The judge sat up straight, her eyes piercing. Mr. Brown, the court has heard testimony, listened to tapes, analyzed written confessions, and seen the emotional toll on the family. How do you answer this body of evidence? Kody's face was white, his voice trembling. I thought I was doing the right thing. I never meant to hurt anyone. I thought I was protecting my family. Christine answered with a speed, sharpness, and ferocity. Protecting? By dominating every thought, every decision, every feeling. Protecting by excluding, lying to, and manipulating. That's not protection, that's tyranny. Meri's voice was rising, shaking with anger. We lived in terror, confusion, and uncertainty, and you did all this. And now we have the evidence to reclaim everything you attempted to take. Janelle's steady voice carried extra weight. We are no longer helpless. And finally, the truth belongs to us. Robyn's voice, gentle but firm, finished. We can't go back. We won't go back. The world knows you for who you are. And so do we. Confrontation ends things, but revelation sets people free. As the courtroom grew quiet, the wives shared fleeting glances, a combination of relief, validation, and exhaustion. Kody himself stood pale, gaunt, and unsure. The empire of manipulation he had so meticulously constructed was crumbling before his very eyes. All tactics, all schemes, all hushed instruction to keep control in hand, had failed. The judge asked for a momentary recess, and the room diminished somewhat, leaving the wives alone for an instant. Christine leaned into the others and spoke in a soft whisper. This is it, the moment of truth over deception. But the last step is coming, and it will alter everything. Meri nodded, her eyes welling up with tears. We've waited, we've suffered, and now we take the next step. Janelle spoke softly. The revelation is only the start. The consequences will be larger than we can conceive, but we are prepared. Robyn's voice, gentle yet resolute, concluded their silent agreement. We've confronted the truth, and nothing will ever be the same again. When every secret is uncovered, the consequence remodels reality as a whole. The court resumed, and Kody's attorney made one last bid to defend him, charging that the evidence was overstated or misread. But the judge, unyielding, overruled most of the objection. The wives' accounts, plus the tape, confession, and supporting evidence had formed a case too strong, too incriminating, and too complete to ignore. Christine's eyes never left Kody. You might have thought you were above being touched, but the truth always emerges, and now the world gets to see everything. Meri's voice was filled with newfound strength. We are no longer intimidated. We are no longer silent, and nothing you say or do can take that away from us. Janelle spoke softly, adding, the truth is uncontainable, and we are finally free to claim our lives back. Robyn's voice, strong and steady, finished. We've been controlled, manipulated, and deceived, but today we stand unbroken, unafraid, and united. Freedom is obtained when the truth is faced, confronted, and accepted in its entirety. The session concluded with the wives walking out in unison, an unwritten understanding of strength and resilience between them. Kody was left behind, shattered, exposed, and vulnerable. The world had witnessed the truth, and there was no going back. And just when you think it's over, we'll expose the stunning final shock. A twist that will alter everything for Kody and the wives forever. The courtroom was electric on the last day of trial. Everyone in the room, reporters, spectators, and the families themselves, felt the gravity of decades of secrets, manipulation, and deception finally laid bare. Kody Brown sat at the defense table, white, stiff, and sunken-eyed. The man who used to wield power with precise calculation was now trapped, vulnerable, and bare. The wives Christine, Meri, Janelle, and Robyn arrived together, their presence a unified front. Christine's jaw was tight with determination. Meri's eyes burned with sorrow and resolve. Janelle's calm strength radiated power. And Robyn, though shaken, now walked free of the illusions that had controlled her for years. Some battles are won not with force, but with the courage to face the truth. The court was called to order by the judge. Now we shall have the final testimony, conclusions, and confession, if any. The court is well aware of the vast amount of evidence, but let's hear whatever is left. Kody's attorney made one final attempt, talking fast and with emotion. Your Honor, my client was misinterpreted. He was acting out of love, commitment, and care for the stability of the family. The tapes, emails, and letters are selective and out of context. Mr. Brown has always felt he was steering the family for their own best. Christine's eyes narrowed tightly. Guiding? You manipulated, deceived, and controlled everything in our lives. You were not guiding, you were orchestrating. And now, after all these years of your deception, the truth is out. When intention conflict with action, reality always supports truth. Meri put her elbows on the table, her voice quivering but firm. I trusted you, Kody. I believed in your protection, your care, and your leadership. But my every instinct regarding fear, isolation, and manipulation proved to be correct. And now there's the proof. I can no longer live under your dominance. Janelle, serene but fierce, continued. We have stood too long for your minute. The tapes, the notes, the corroborating evidence, they all tell one story. Intentional, calculated, and destructive control. And today, that control is over. Robyn finally spoke, her voice trembling but resolute. I defended, I believed in you. I tried to rationalize your action, but I see now what I ignored for so long. I cannot be complicit any longer. I cannot stand by someone who orchestrated our lives for his own benefit. Acknowledging betrayal is painful, but necessary for true liberation. The prosecution then introduced the final evidence, a private tape Kody never imagined anyone would ever hear. On it, he outlined methods to sway the public opinion of the family behind closed doors while keeping every move the wives ever made under control. Each word, each plan, each instruction was calculated. It was chillingly clear, specific, and incriminating. Christine's voice was icy as she spoke to the court. You see it now, everyone? This is the man who portrayed himself as loving and devoted, but behind closed doors controlled every step, every word, every decision. That is not love. That is control. Meri's hands were tightly. All those doubts, fears, and awkward felt were, and now the world's. Janelle spoke quietly, adding, the manipulation wasn't an accident, it was intentional, and the ramifications of that are inescapable. Robyn's lips quivered. I can't defend him. I won't try to make it something other than it is. The reality is inescapable, and we are finished living under his false revelation of long is both shattering and freeing. The judge then to Kody. Mr. Brown, the court has weighed all evidence, test and confession. Do you have anything to say in your last statement? Cody's hands trembled as he stood up. His voice was faint, his normal cool demeanor totally lost. I never meant to hurt anyone. I thought I was leading the family, guarding them. Christine pushed forward, her words slicing like a knife. Protecting? By locking us away, dictating all our and dictating our words and actions. That is not protection, Kody. That is manipulation. And today, we take back our lives. Meri's tone grew with a blend of sadness and resolve. We lived in fear, control, and oppression. But today, we stand as one. The world has witnessed reality, and we are finally. Janelle's soft voice came with authority. Your reign of control is over today. We will no longer be manipulated and silent. The truth is out. Robyn, at last discovering her power, added steadfast, we've been held by fear and loyalty, but no longer. Today we enter clarity and empowerment. Confrontation is just the start. Freedom comes with truth accepted. As the courtroom digested the gravity of these words, Kody's attorney attempted to interrupt once, but the judge cut him off. The court has heard enough testimony and seen all the evidence. We will now deliberate on the meaning and what's next. The wives glanced at each other, relief, empowerment, and reflecting. They had battled decades of manipulation. Confrontation came out stronger, their bond intact. Christine leaned into Meri and Janelle. This is just the beginning. But today, we reclaim what was rightfully ours all along. Meri nodded through. We were silent. Today we talk. Janelle softly added, and nothing will ever silence us again. Robyn's eyes, fogged up by loyalty, now showed clarity. Finally relief. The court resumed after a brief deliver the final verdict. The tone of the judge's voice was stern, measured. Upon careful consideration of all evidence, test, confession, the court finds that Mr. Brown's manipulations and control of the family are intentional, calculated, and detrimental. Steps will be taken to ensure accountability, transparency, protect the family. Kody's face paled. His empire of dominance impenetrable was the strategy plot. Hush directive had been useless. The man who had plotted so much control was now reaping the benefit. Even the most careful control cannot long endure reality. Outside the courtroom, reporters swarmed. Social media erupted. The world had witnessed the family claiming their voices, their and their power. The wives stood together, a visible symbol of. Christine's eyes glimmered with quiet triumph. Meri's expression radiated empowerment. Janelle's calm strength projected, and Robyn's newfound clarity shone like a awakening. Kody, on the other hand, appeared pale and speak. The veneer of control had vanished. He had been revealed to himself, his wives, and to the world. His legacy of manipulation control had fallen apart in real time. Exposure redefines lives, reality itself. As they exited the courthouse side by side, the wives whispered among them, Christine, we've done it. We've finally regained control of our lives, our voices, and our feet. Meri nodded, tears flowing. We're silent for decades. Tomorrow we. Janelle spoke softly. The truth cannot be stopped. And we are greater than elation. Robyn's steady voice, the unspoken. We've gone through deception, the lies, and now we are finally. Nothing like that from. When confronted, deception falls apart, and freedom is stronger than ever. The last blow came out of the Just before was about to, a reporter passed a letter to court staff. Anonymous letter stating there were more recordings stashed away by explaining more Dia's strategy plot. Gasps arose and Kody blanched. The judge arched an eyebrow. This will be examined over the next today. The court acknowledged solidarity of the wives and the irrefutable evidence today. The wives looked at each, a combination of caution and they knew their fight was not entirely, but for a time they had power, clarity, the travail. Kody could not take back the tale of P. Dunn tends to uncover, and justice gets her. The wives stepped out into sunlight, their firm and resolute. They had endured betrayal, manipulation, but together strong, empowered. Kody's dictator control was, at least a time, and the world had Chris, Meri, Janelle, and Robyn. Not only had their voices restored to, but their lives, standing together in front of the courthouse, full strength, and shattered its powerful shackles of lies. And just excitement, the threat of fresh revelation, because some secrets are never and some tales are only half told.